Hey, you guys. This is your boy Cam, Football Frame of Mind. And trying a new series out, man. It's called Football Frame of Mind Time Machine, man. Um, Going back in time, man, just looking at some of the stats, some of the champions, looking at some of the greatest seasons throughout the timeline, of the NFL, man. So, out of respect for the guys that played, in the early 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, we're going to give them a shout out too. But we're going to start the meat of this in, the 1960s. All right. I think that is a time where the NFL started to become exactly what we thought it was, and like I said, we're gonna give those guys a shout out to before this as well. But I really want to talk about from 1960 to 1970. Just to recap, man, some of the greatest players, some of the greatest seasons, man. Just to give a really good, I want to say a really good feedback, on what I think of it. Obviously wasn't necessarily alive then, but it's just really cool. I wanted to try something, and see how it goes. Diversifying our content, our content library, man. We call ourselves, me and Brandon, we call ourselves football connoisseurs, man. So we really like to get deep into the past, man, because football's changed a lot, man, for the good and some stuff for the bad, But like I said, man, really want to get into it, man. So let's check some stuff out, man. So, for me, I really want to start, man, at the beginning. You look at the beginning, 1920, right? You got the Akron Pros, right? You got the Akron Pros, not even a team anymore, man. But if you know your history, you know the Chicago Staleys, I want to say, turned into the Chicago Bears, right? They are the champions at this point. George Halas, who becomes the owner of said Chicago Bears, should I say. He was the coach, the GM, the owner. He was everything for the Bears, but he's also everything for the Staleys, the Canton Bulldogs, right? Canton, Ohio. Right. That's where the Hall of Fame is, right? They end up undefeated. So pretty damn good. You know what I'm saying? So they were some champions. The Cleveland Bulldogs, the Chicago Cardinals. I forgot who they became, but I know the Chicago Cardinals are an actual team right now. I can't really remember who they turned into, but I remember seeing that, like, researching it as I got into um, the thing. So yeah. So the Chicago Cardinals became the Arizona Cardinals, right? So I'm about to say I knew they were a team, then we get into the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, man. Like that's crazy. Of course, the New York Giants have been around for a very, very long time. But but yeah, those are the New York Giants. Those are the regular New York Giants because the Mara family is like, I don't know if they're in charge right now. Are they in charge right now? I don't know if the Mara fan. I think they might be still owners of the New York Giants. I think so. I'm not sure. But the Providence Steamroller, right? The Providence Steamroller, if you're an NBA fan, is actually a real team. They had a real team. Um, real team. They played the Yankees, they played the Giants, so the Packers at that time too. So like they that's a good team. And the Packers, obviously, they had a really good run early on. They won some titles early. So you see a lot of these guys, man. Then we get into what the World War II era, you know. Then you got the Packers winning, the Redskins winning, the Bears winning, Packers, Giants, Detroit Lions is even winning. Then we get into the AAFC, right? This is the Cleveland Browns, that's when they were like winning all the titles, this is uh, this is obviously Paul Brown is there, but this is more so like the Otto Graham, the Otto Graham era. Otto Graham, looking at him, 26 years old at the time, all pro, right? Look at these numbers, 60% completion percentage, right? Today that's really bad, but back then that's really good, right? Considering how people just ran the ball a lot, man. Marion Motley averaging 6 yards a carry. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy right now. That's crazy. So like you look at a lot of these guys, man. Back then they were running the ball so much and all of that, and you see a lot, man. You see a lot, man. So shout out to all the guys that really put the NFL on the map. You know, put them on the map, and really pave the way for these players nowadays. I don't really think that a lot of players nowadays are really connoisseurs of history. I think they should be. You should know all the good players that came before you. You should know the players that were stars at your position group. You should care about that. It's not always about the dollars, because back then in these days, there wasn't really about the dollars, right? You had a lot of guys that were professional football players, but also professional plumbers, professional, hitmen for the mob, like they had other jobs, they were awesome guys, that were great athletes as well, but the money wasn't in professional sports just yet. But I love the fact that the NFL, does keep a really good history, of what their league was before, the merger, which happened in the 70s, 1970. So I really like that they keep, I like that they keep a good history of it, So, what I'm saying? But the Browns, man, they won all kind of championships, man. What the fuck? They won a lot. They won a lot, man. But shout out to the Eagles. They won a lot as well, you know. So like that's always good, man. So like I said, the time machine, man, is just going back and everything. And I told you I wanted to give a good shout out to those players that came before this era, man. A whole lot, man. But we start in the 60s, man. 1960, right? So 1960, man, you see the league champion, the Eagles, right? So before the Eagles won their first Super Bowl, right? I want to say in 2017 or something like that. This was their only championship, right? Their most recent championship before they start winning again, right? And I want to say Chuck Bednarik was on that team, right? You just look at some of the standings here, right? You can tell the league was so little, so the league was so small, man. The Cowboys were winless, you know, 0 wins, you know, straight ass. But, the Eagles were your top dogs, and the Packers at this time, Vince Lombardi, I don't know if this was his first season. His first season was 59, right? So this is his second season in Green Bay, right? And he already had them guys full tilt as one of the best teams in the league, right? Detroit was real good, Like I said, Detroit had a really good defense. You wasn't scoring on them for real. Right? Look at some of these scores, right? 14, 17, right? 0, 10, 10, 15, 14, right? 0, right? They were really rough on defense, you know what I'm saying? So, and they had Earl Morrall, right? He was on the team. He ended up winning a Super Bowl. I think historically, Earl Morrall might be the best backup quarterback ever, like historically, you know. Obviously, he was with the Colts, right? And he ended up getting MVP and things like that, right? So at 35, 34, I mean, MVP of the league at 30, 34 is like unheard of, And then at 38, with the at 38 with the Dolphins and their undefeated season, by the way, right? This is 72. This is their undefeated season, right? And he was the quarterback, which is why I say that he's probably the greatest backup quarterback ever because, in 68 for the Baltimore Colts, right? I want to say Johnny Unitas was still on the team, right? And Johnny Unitas was the starter, but he was older and things like that, right? But Earl Morrall comes in, and plays really good. But everybody knew Johnny Unitas was the guy. Johnny Unitas was the first franchise quarterback, in my opinion, right? Like when I say the first franchise quarterback, like he was the first quarterback that really, I would say, commanded the spotlight, in my opinion. Right? Yeah, there were bigger guys, but at the end of the day, I think there was nobody like Johnny Unitas. Nobody. The drop back pass, the way he looked, the way he carried himself, right? Like that was kind of the first big name quarterback, right, in NFL history, right? Because we get into the 50s, 60s, and stuff. He was the guy. I mean, you just look at it. Look at it. These are crazy, Like I said, he was, maybe not the most accurate passer, right, in terms of completion percentage. Not at all. But you can tell when you look at this point in time, that Pro Bowler, Pro Bowler, Pro Bowler, MVP, 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 like he was a guy, he was a dude, you know? And here's why I say that Earl Morrall was the greatest backup quarterback. Because think about all of this, right? So, like, here's why I say Earl Morrall's the best backup quarterback of all time, right? You know, he's on these Baltimore teams, right? He's on these teams, but guess who's there as well? Guess who's there as well? Johnny Unitas. Johnny Unitas is there, right? And of course, Earl Morrall takes over at some point, right? But Johnny Unitas is there as well. He's there as well. You know, he started that season and won MVP of the league, right? But the next season, Johnny Unitas is starting again. You know, Johnny Unitas is back as a starter. That's why I said he's the greatest backup quarterback of all time, right? And then he goes and then almost gets MVP again in 72. You know, so yeah, so great, great time in the 60s, man. Like great time here. You know, you look at like I want to get back to that screen. I want to get back to this one, right? So like you just look at some of the teams, man, like the Cardinals and St. Louis, right? You didn't even think that's like a baseball team, you know? Like, come on, man. Then you got the Browns in the 60s after winning a bunch of titles throughout the 50s, right? You know, you got, I want to say, who's this? Len Dawson, right? Like the Len Dawson. Come on, man. This is Len Dawson, Super Bowl champion for the Kansas City Chiefs, right? You know, of the AFL, right? So I can imagine how this whole situation went. You know, the NFL, you know, is bustling, but then the AFL comes along and offers him more money, you know, and he continues to be like one of the best, you know, one of the best quarterbacks, right? Um, you know, so like I said, man, he's a backup. He's a backup, you know. Bobby Mitchell, come on, man. Bobby Mitchell is one of the most dual threat running backs ever, you know? Like that's just absolutely insane, man. Absolutely insane. And then I want to say at that particular time, he was sharing the backfield with Jim Brown. You know, sharing the backfield with Jim Brown. Like, come on, man. Jim Brown played fullback, right? He's one of the greatest running backs ever, but they call him a fullback. Like, come on, man. Jim Brown was just a monster, a monster amongst men at this point, man. And the fact that they won 8 games just lets you know how good he was, right? So obviously the Eagles win in 1960 and they end up beating the Packers. You know, the Packers at that point, you know, like I said, this is Vince Lombardi's second season. So he's building them up into something, but the Eagles just had too much, man. They just had way too much, you know. Obviously, they end up having Norm Van Brocklin. I remember him being on those particular teams. He was older, but you see who the backup was: Sonny Jurgensen. You know, one of the best passers of his era. You know, most certainly one of the best passers of the '60s. You know, so I mean, he gets the job. I guess Norm retires, and then he gets the job with Philly and then he becomes one of the best. Like it's his job, you know, right? You know, most certainly not the most accurate guy, but he's good, you know. Like I think more people think of Sonny Jurgensen with the Redskins than anything, but he's an NFL champion, you know, so that counts. Yeah. He said defensive stats aren't necessarily all the way there, you know, not yet. it's some stuff that they don't necessarily it's some stuff that they don't necessarily count at this point in time. But what you need to know is that Chuck Bednarik was a bad motherfucker, man. He's a bad motherfucker, man. Like, he was bad, bro. Like, he was one of those dudes, man. He was a guy at this point, man, playing both sides of the ball. And then he gets his championship as well. Like, he's a two-time champion as well. So let's not forget that he won before. But at the same time, bro, Chuck Bednarik was playing center and he was playing linebacker, bro. Like, come on, man. He was getting interceptions. Like, I don't think tackles were necessarily like counted for real. But he probably had a whole lot of them, you know. And Don Burrows, come on, man. Like, are we just gonna forget that Don Burrows, you know, like had 9 interceptions in 1960? Like, what are we talking about here? You know, he's not a Hall of Famer. Like, what are we doing here? You know, did he not play long enough, or what are we doing here? Like, this guy is good as hell. 9, 2, 3, 7, 9, 7, 7, 4, 2. Like, come on, man. What are we doing? What are we doing, man? This is crazy. He should be a Hall of Famer straight up right now. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. But nonetheless, man, 1960 finishes off with some pretty interesting stuff, man. So, like, you ended up MVP. So I would bet my bottom dollar that Norm Van Brocklin is probably MVP of the whole thing, huh? MVP of, like, I guess unanimous. Because you got UPI MVP, got newspaper, sporting news player of the year. Like, you know, you got some pretty important outlets giving out MVP at this time, you know. So interesting, you know. Like I said, they only play, I want to say, what, 15 games, 14 games, if you count like a bye week or something. Matter of fact, let me see that real quick. Let me see let me see. So yeah, so they play 13 games, right? So, you know, playoffs definitely weren't extended. You know, you got Raymond Berry leading it and all of that. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you know, in a world where a lot of people were running the ball and things like that, to have 1,000 yards receiving lets you know how good your quarterback was. And that's Johnny Unitas, man. So, you know, like, that's crazy work. Crazy work, man. Crazy work, man. So, I mean, like I said, that's why I say that Johnny Unitas was like the first franchise quarterback ever. Because in an era where people aren't passing much at all, I mean, obviously Norm Van Brocklin is one of those dudes, you know, but your next guy is like almost 600 yards behind, 800 yards behind Johnny Unitas. So, you know, you get into the playoffs and Bart Starr is like your guy, you know? But it's only one playoff game, so it's not like a big sample size. But that's crazy work. That's crazy work, man. I can't believe that, man. Like, that's such a big drop off between like everybody else, like passing and everybody else, you know? Like, that's crazy, you know? And then you think about the running, right? So, like, in terms of yardage, Jim Brown was obviously the guy, right? 24 years old, right? I can't imagine trying to tackle a 24-year-old Jim Brown, like a 25-year-old Jim Taylor, you know? I can't imagine doing that. And then, you know, the Packers were cheating because they had Paul Hornung, who's a Heisman winner, you know, MVP. Like, come on, man. The Golden Boy. He was on all the newspapers, man. All of it. You look Uh, Paul Horning, he's on everything, and he went to Notre Dame too. So it's like, that's one of the biggest schools at that point. So nah, man, but it's good. It was good to see Paul Horning at like I don't know whose Heisman. I don't know whose Heisman that was, but it was interesting, man. It was interesting, bro. Like that was pretty damn cool, So, like I said, pretty fucking cool, man. Then we get into receiving, right? Raymond Berry's like the best dude ever. Like Bobby Mitchell is like he's backing up. Like I guess you'd say backing up Jim Brown, but he's that's why I say he's a dual threat dude. Like he did everything, you know. And Gale, what was that? Caudill, rookie of the year. Rookie of the year with Detroit. You know, balled out. Especially early in his career. It's crazy work, man. Crazy work, man. Like I said, defensive stats aren't necessarily gonna be on here because it's like they didn't really count shit. Like, I mean, you had interceptions and Dave Barker at this point, led Dave Barker and Jerry Newton, but Don Burrows is completely underrated. So, like I said, man, like it's not a lot of stats on defense for real. But you got your interceptions, and those guys were pretty good. You got Ray Nitsky on here with a touchdown. You got 3 interceptions. Night Train Lane with 5 interceptions. Like, come on, man. And Night Train was 32 at this point. You know, so he was doing his thing. So yeah, man. So shout out to those guys, man. But let's get into 1961. Let's get into 1961, man. Let's go back. Let's go back a little bit. Let's go back. Yeah, let's go all season. Let's go to 1961. Let's see what 1961 had for us. Okay. So 1961, man. This is Paul Horning wins MVP of the league. You start to see, the Packers start to build their team up, right? They're not at their dynasty part yet. They're not at the dynasty part, but the Packers did win the league title that year, right? They took out the Giants, in drastic fashion, bro. Like they beat the dog shit out of the Giants, man. 37-0. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? It's outside. They played outside. They played on the grass. What are we doing? 17 degrees? Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? They stood no chance, man. No chance, man. You look at these numbers, man. Like, it's just ridiculous. And one thing I love hearing about Vince Lombardi's teams, right? Vince Lombardi's teams were disciplined. And you see it in the penalties. 4 penalties. Now, granted, the rules were a little bit barbaric at the time, but still, 4 penalties for 16 yards, discipline. I like that type of shit. You know what I'm saying? But why Tittle couldn't do nothing. Charlie Connolly couldn't do nothing. Right? Bart Starr didn't even have to have his best game. But he did. Nice completion percentage, 3 touchdowns. Like, come on, man. He's throwing dots out there, bro. Herb Adderley had an interception. Ray Nitsky had an interception. Like, what are we doing? Like, this is crazy work, man. Crazy. They put the whooping on these dudes, man. Put the whooping on them, man. But like I said, man, Vince Lombardi, man, this is what his first title, I want to say. His first title. First title. And quite frankly, the beginning of something special, man. Like the beginning of something special, man. And in this particular time, the world was changing, especially within the racial, confines of it. And Vince Lombardi, I want to say he was Italian. I want to say he was Italian. Like, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say he was Italian. And even that was hard for him to even get a job, even get a job. It was hard for him. And that's crazy to me, you know. But, you see some really big names that, you know, started out in 61, Like, look at Mike Ditka, rookie of the year with the Bears, right? You know, like, he came out gunning. He's a fucking tight end. He had 56 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 12 touchdowns. And then he turns out to be one of the best coaches of his era, too. Come on, man. It's crazy out here. It's crazy out here, man. Crazy. But let's get into some passing leaders, man. So Johnny Unitas at this point, he's slowing down a little bit. A little bit. Just a tad. He's slowing down just a tad. Just a tad. All right, he still had a couple good years in him, but he slowed down a little bit compared to the year prior, right? Especially the years prior when he was like really, really good. But he slowed down a little bit. And I told you right after Norm Van Brocklin retired, Sonny Jurgensen got the reins. And they just let him do his thing. And, that's what happened. I'm about to see if it really meant anything. But you also had the AFL at that time as well. So let's check that out too, right? You can't forget that, right? So the AFL, I want to say, they were around as well. In 60, that's when they started as well. But we missed that a little bit. All right. We go back though. We go back and do that. Yeah. So Houston Oilers, obviously that turned into an NFL team as well with the merger. More fun, more inclusive, and they end up winning. You see some pretty cool teams on there: the Buffalo Bills, Patriots, the Chargers, the Texans, the Raiders, Broncos. So a lot of these teams really turned into, powerhouses at some point, right? Specifically, the Raiders at one point. The Patriots were always up and down, but obviously they turned into something serious. So like I said, man. Let me see some leadership over there, man. Let me see some leaders over there, man. Let's see, man. Let's see, I'm trying to see some names, bro. But you can tell the AFL was like wide open. Like, it's a lot more passers, like George Blanda, who played on Houston, by the way. Like, more wide open offenses because like there's more 2,000, 3,000 yard passers in this particular league than in the NFL. Abner Hayes. I'm trying to see Abner Hayes. So he played on, say, the Dallas Texans. So they turned into, I want to say, no. The Dallas Texans turned into the Chiefs. Yeah, they turned into the Chiefs. My bad. I was like, damn, the Cowboys. No, they turned into the Chiefs. My bad. So, yeah, so they cold, man. They cold. Led the league in rushing and everything. Damn. Was Billy Cannon in there? Or did he end up signing with somebody else? I thought I seen Billy Cannon and I was about to say, hell yeah, I did. I did see Billy Cannon in there. Hell yeah, Billy Cannon, bro. Yeah, that's the same Billy Cannon, bro, that played at I wonder if that's the same Billy Cannon that played at LSU. Gotta be. Gotta be the same Billy Cannon, bro. I'm gonna find that out. I'm gonna find that out. Cause that's pretty damn cool. But let's get into 60 61 of the NFL, man. Yeah, if I can get my damn mouse stack right. Let's get into let's get into 61 of the NFL, man. So as I said, man, Jim Brown was in his bag basically. He was in his bag at this point, man. Nobody was touching him. Obviously, Jim Taylor was good, but nobody was touching Jim Brown at this point. Jim Brown was one of those ones. He was one of those ones, and that was it. You see a lot of guys on the list. They get maybe 1,000, but Jim Taylor and Jim Brown, they was fighting for it, man. They was fighting for it. You see a lot of guys on the list, man, a whole lot. And that's pretty damn good. Then we get into, like I said, the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks at the particular time. Sonny Jurgensen was balling. Billy Wade, Fran Tarkington. A young Fran Tarkington, by the way. So this is year one for him on a bad Minnesota team, but you can tell he was one of those ones, man. He was doing his thing. So you start to see some guys on here. Y.A. Tittle's kind of on his way out, in 60s. So, but still a really good player, though. Still a really good player, man. In fact, he had some of his best years late. Yeah, he had some of his best years late. 63, 36 touchdowns, 62, 33, MVP at age 37. Well, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, what are we doing there? That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy as hell. I don't want to do that. I want to do the defense stats. Let's see. All right, so we still ain't, so okay, so 61. They started counting. They started not counting sacks, but actually people were keeping track of the games, I would say. So I don't know if these were tackles or sacks or whatever, but Gene Lishcombe led the league in sacks, 17. Even though sacks weren't official until 82. But he led the league in sacks, and Dick Lynch, Burrows at 7. We already talked about Burrows. Night Train at 6. Like, come on, man. What are we doing? Willie Wood, 5. Some good names on here. Larry Wilson, the young Larry Wilson, 23 years old. Right? Doing his thug thizzle, man. The guy that kind of started the safety blitz. Sam Huffing that thing, man. That's what's up, man. Who led the league in touchdowns, though? Was that Eric Barnes? So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like I said, then we got Raymond Berry still on there. Didn't have the best year, but Tommy McDonald on the Eagles using Sonny Jurgensen's, downfield passing is pretty good, bro. That's pretty good. Yeah, man. Goddamn, man. This would be real cool, man, if I had my damn pops here with me, man. This would be cool just to go down memory lane with him. All these guys he saw, man. Tommy McDonald leading the damn league with 13 touchdowns, man. That's pretty damn fire, bro. I'm sorry. But the Packers really did their thing, man. They did their thing, man. So 61 on the AFL side. Billy Cannon, man. I'm still trying to hold up, man. I'm gonna look that up because that's kind of fucking with me. Is that the same Billy Cannon that went to LSU? I gotta fucking see. Because he's a fucking Heisman winner. So I gotta fucking see. Okay, so he was first overall in the he was first overall in the NFL draft and didn't sign. So he went to the AFL, right? Because probably they fucking, because they probably offered him more money because that was kind of the AFL's thing. The AFL was offering more money, smaller league, obviously, but more money. So yeah, that's the same Billy Cannon because he was the AFL rushing leader in 61. Yeah, AFL championship MVP in 60 and 61, right? And then he was AFL champion 3 times, right? Damn, he was good. Went to the Raiders. He didn't really do shit with the Raiders for real. I mean, they won a title, but he didn't do too much with them, probably because they was ass. But all-star, man, like, damn. He was cold, man. Billy Cannon was cold, man. I think had he went to like the NFL, he'd probably be a little bit. He probably have more legendary status, in my opinion. But shit, he a legend to me. I don't care. He cold as hell, and I don't even like LSU like that, man. That's my dog, Brandon. But man, Billy Cannon was off the fucking chain, bro. Then we get into like the yards, bro. That's why I said this whole AFL thing, man. They was like, it was fun. It looked more fun than the NFL, bro. Because the fact that you could like dude had 1,700 yards in 1961. Right? And we go to the NFL, the highest dude was like 1,100 maybe. But you got 3-4 dudes with 1,000 yards receiving, man. That's crazy, right? Like Charlie Hennigan is going nuts, bro. Like he went stupid in 61. Like the Oilers had a squad, bro. That's crazy. They had a motherfucking squad, bro. Like what, they fired a coach midway through the season? He just won an AFL title. Or did he pass away? Did he pass away? No. Okay, so he was on the team. They just fired him. That's crazy, bro. He started with the Packers. He's a head coach. Then he come back to the Oilers as an offensive line guy. And then he was what I want to say, was that college football? He was Akron. High school coach, West Texas. And then he's offensive line coach in 70. So he's a champion. He just does have that on his resume. But it seemed like when they let Wally Lim become the head coach, that was it. And then in an unprecedented move, though, right? An unprecedented move. He wins the title as, I guess you say, the interim coach, and then leaves and goes to St. Louis, right? Leaves and goes to St. Louis of the NFL. So when I see things like that, right? When I see things like like that, when they jump leagues like that, that means that somebody was paying attention. Somebody was paying attention. Like somebody was paying attention and it worked. It worked, man. Like, damn, that's cold. To jump a league right after you win. But what's crazy is like they had it all, man. The Oilers had it all. That's just crazy to me. Like I said, that's just nuts, bro. That's just absolutely nuts, man. Let's check out some defensive stats in the AFL though. Like I said, sacks weren't official, but I'm just trying to see. Those people on there. Smokey Stover. Smokey Stover, man. I like that name. He had 5 sacks. Ron Neary. I feel like I heard that name before. He had a pretty good career though. He was quick. He had a quick career. But like I said, he went to San Diego, was at the Chargers. Yeah. Went to the Chargers. C. Gilman. He did some good too. All right, let's get into 60. Let's go 62. Let's go 62. Let's see what happens in 62, man. Yeah, let's see what happens in 62, man. So 62, the Packers obviously win back-to-back titles. Jim Taylor finally, since we're talking about the 60s, he finally beat Jim Brown in the Russian title race. Finally, right? Not sure what happened with the Browns that season. It's just 7-6-1, so a little down year, I'd say, right? But John David Crow, I feel like I remember that name from somewhere. Yeah, but Jim Taylor finally beat him, and he had 1,400 yards and 19 touchdowns. That's crazy, man. MVP of the league, Bobby Mitchell, like Bobby Mitchell turned up, man. Like he leaves Cleveland, right, and becomes a hella good receiver, bro. Like he's crazy good, right? He becomes one of the best receivers, right? And he's already one of the best players. But I guess you start focusing on receiver after that. But cold as hell. Led the league in receiving that particular season. It's crazy, bro. That's crazy to me. Led the league in receiving. Sonny Randall, Mike Ditka, another good season at tight end. Gail Cogdill or Cogdill, another good season from him. Raymond Berry still playing pretty good. So, yeah, that's pretty good. Sonny Jurgensen, another good season passing the ball. Right, so that's 2 years in a row for him. He led the league in receiving. I mean, not receiving, but passing. Y.A. Tittle, number 1 in touchdowns. Got the most interceptions. Sonny Jurgensen. And then Fred Tarkenton right behind him. Bobby Lane. All right. So, I'm pretty going to see some defensive stats, man. Let's see. Who got seven interceptions? Willie Wood. How you got 9 interceptions, and then your teammate Herb Adderley, right? Who's really good, bro. Herb was just the Packers was cheating, bro. Like, how the hell you got Willie Wood and Herb Adderley on the same team? That's cheating, bro. That's like having Champ Bailey and Deion Sanders on the same team, bro. That's just cheating, bro. That's not even fair. Yale Laurie, like, come on, man. Like, that's crazy. He served the country too, so thank you for your service, Yale. Yeah, man. He left. He left a lot of interceptions on the table, bro. He's a good punter too. Good punter. Damn. Yeah, he was the best punter in the thing. And he played defense. That's fucking crazy, bro. That's crazy how they used to do that shit. Interception yards. So Richie Pettibone. Richie Pettibone from New Orleans. Yeah, Richie Pettibone. He was returning that motherfucker. Yeah, 100 yards. I hope they got that shit on camera. Because fuck, that would have been nice to see. Let's see, he got the sacks and shit. What was that Cat Cabbage? Is that how we say that? 16 sacks. Jesus. Deacon Jones wasn't lying. Hey, Deacon Jones wasn't lying, bruh. He did. He said he had like 20 sacks. He said that in the interview. He's like, man, I had like 20 sacks and 60 something. He wasn't lying. He wasn't lying, bruh. He said he had like 20. He did. He did, man. Boy, Deacon Jones was a motherfucker. Boy, that head slap. It's like, if I slap you in your head, you going to be stunned for a minute. And I get right by you. Boy, them old dudes was not playing with y'all, man. That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Is that Henry Jordan? I don't know if that's... No, we had different... That was Leroy Jordan. That's pretty tight, man. Let's check out the AFL. Let's see what we got, man. So MVP of the league was Cookie Gilchrist. Cookie Gilchrist was the MVP of the AFL at 60. Was that 60? Where we at? 62? Yeah, so he was an MVP. And he had... Damn. Was he MVP and Rookie of the Year? Would that have been a thing? Yeah, so he had to be Rookie of the Year. That's his first season. Damn, so he came out gunning. Damn. That's crazy, bro. I'm telling you, man, the AFL just seemed like more fun. So if y'all watch our old show, man, where I was saying, what if the AFL didn't merge with the NFL, man? I think the AFL would have been fine. Like this seems more fun. Like you just come into the league and just have fun. That's crazy to me. That is crazy, man. The Oilers get in that motherfucker and they lose. They lose to what would become the Chiefs. So they was about to go on a three-peat. Yeah, but their coach left. So I think if they would have kept their coach, they would have won. What is Jefferson Stadium? That's Houston. It's not there anymore, is it? Yeah, I mean, it probably is, but I don't know. I'm gonna check that out. But but Chiefs ended up winning, man. So that's pretty cool. Oakland Raiders was ass at this point. Yeah, this ain't Al's time yet, I don't think. But as soon as he got the team, bro, they start winning. Yeah, once he got the team, they start winning. So that's interesting. Let's see who over here in this league. See, so George Blanda still there. Lynn Dawson, he's still in the Chiefs. Dallas Texans. Jack Kemp. Jack Kemp was with San Diego. So, yeah. Let's see. So, who's the touchdown leader, man? Lynn Dawson? Yeah, Lynn Dawson was balling. Yeah, he was good. He's really good. I like that. Art Powell led the league in receiving yards. Don fucking Maynard, bro. So he's a running back. So he's a running back for the Giants in 58. Leaves, plays in Canada, then comes back to the big leagues. Well, not the big leagues, but to the States, should I say. And balls the fuck out, man. Balls the fuck out. That's what's up. That's what's up. Jets legend, though. Definitely a Jets legend. Because he ended up getting a Super Bowl in like 68 with the Jets. Well, he was way older then, but didn't matter. He still had 1,200 yards. So he was doing his motherfucking thing. That's what's up. Let's check out some defense. Let's see who had the most sacks that year, man. Was that Ed Husman, Mel Branch? Yeah, that's what's up. Let me see Russian. I didn't check that out yet. So Billy Cannon ended up with fucking Billy Cannon was alright that season. Abner Hayes, bro. Shout out Abner, man. He had a good run. He had a real good run. Let's see. But Cookie Gilchrist, man, I gotta see what he looked like, man. They got some film on him. All right, let's check out. Did I do? Let me see. Hold up. Did I do the Super Bowl or not the NFL title game? I don't think so. Yes, I did. Did I do that? Shit, we can go, man. 62 champion of the league. So the Packers end up winning that shit. Back to back. Yeah, so they won back to back titles. Y.A. Tittle won MVP too that season. But so they played the so the Packers end up no. Go back. Okay, yeah. So the Packers beat the Giants, which is interesting. That's pretty cool. I like that. Yeah, I like that. I fucks with that, man. So they ended up beating the Giants, man, in a better game than they had the last time. Because the one before that was pretty bad. And they had the Vegas line on there too. They had the Packers winning that. They was a favorite, -5, -6.5. Seemed like they got after Bart Starr this time. He ain't had that big ass game. Then Y.A. Tittle was like, we ain't having that shit again. He ain't play that well, but it's like we ain't having that. You know, we ain't doing that shit again. No, but they couldn't do nothing with Jim Taylor, bro. Like he was like really in his bag, bro. He was in his bag, bro. He got a touchdown. He had to work for it, man. They was playing their ass off though. Yeah, they was playing their ass off. So Jerry Kramer, the guard? No way. You gotta be kidding me. So the offensive lineman was the kicker? Yo. No fucking way. Jerry Kramer, the fucking guard, was the kicker of the Packers. Oh my God, are you serious? Yo, that's crazy. So he got field goal in this game. He should have been MVP of the motherfucking game, low key. They don't win without Kramer, bro. I can't get over the fact that he was the damn kicker. Yo, that's crazy, bro. But the Packers were still cheating, though. They were still cheating. Still cheating. They're cheating, man. And the Giants stood no chance, bro. They stood no damn chance, man. I'm trying to keep these under an hour, bro. So we're gonna come up with part two. Part two of this, man. Try to keep it under an hour, man. I told you I love this type of shit, man. But y'all do me a favor, man. We're gonna have part two of the Time Machine series, man, of the 60s and 70s part series. So we're gonna come back and we're gonna do part two. Part two probably be a long series, man. It'd be something I can keep going and do. But we're gonna continue with 1963 on the next video, man. So y'all like and subscribe. Be right back. See you on the next one.